significantly different than what I normally do. Um, if you jump in a live stream in the middle of this, you're gonna get kind of weirded out. But I'm still gonna go forward with this. This game is a game called McPixel. Um, the game is, to put it simply, bizarre. It's sort of like a point and click adventure, but it definitely doesn't take itself seriously, like by any stretch of the imagination. I've already beaten the first couple of chapters. Game's very, very, very easy for the most part. A lot of it's just guessing and checking. But I'm not playing this game as a game. I guess is the best way to explain why this is going to seem very, very strange. I'm playing this game as sort of a way for me to just kind of talk about things, get some detail, give people some detail on who I am, a little more than that. Kind of just get stuff off my chest that I don't normally get to talk about. Yeah, it was almost like you were sitting in the chat for the whole time. Um, so basically, I'm gonna try to start from like a certain point and just discuss. I'm gonna try not to let the game distract me too much, although I have to admit that a random Frenchman and nothing I can interact with is kind of weird, but alright, so let's get the basic stuff out of the way. The stuff that in many cases people would ask in a FAQ. First of all, I've obviously said several times I'm married. I've been married for 3 years now. Been in the relationship with my wife for about 5. We met over the internet in probably about the weirdest way possible. I was trolling women on the internet because I had just went through a pretty crummy relationship, and I figured that that would be a good way to sort of get my stress out. And that yielded me with I basically was like looking at chicks' profiles and complaining about how stupid it was some of their ideas were as to what they thought was a good thing to put in their profile. Ultimately, my wife wasn't a big fan of like well, my wife had been annoyed by the fact that over a series of several um, you know uh, basically over quite some time doing stuff on on the site, she'd mostly been just propositioned by men looking for sex, which which sort of yielded her deciding that it was important to make the primary topic of her page that she was not interested in sex, which seems a little bit strange if it was basically I don't want to have sex right there on the front page, which seems a little strange if your whole goal is to not talk about sex. That seems sort of defeatist because the very first thing you put into people's heads is sex. You can't avoid sex by bringing up sex very first and foremost. So ultimately, it sparked a conversation. We started talking, and the rest sort of led up to what it is now. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at talking about myself. I don't feel I'm important enough to talk about myself. So this is actually incredibly uncomfortable if it's not obvious. There's been stuff that's gone on in my life, but I don't know. I just always assume that people have a much better story than I do. And I'm fine. I don't know this. It's like I said, it's stuff that I've just repeated the same thing all over again. So I guess I have to pull at every one of those bars. No, I'm not in like a suicidal mode or anything. I just this is something to sort of help me discuss, like to just sort of talk about things that I normally wouldn't bring up. I normally wouldn't talk about. That I normally probably wouldn't feel very comfortable talking about. Guess that works. It's kind of weird. I've had a huge problem with it for like quite a bit of time. Especially when you I mean when you consider like there's a lot of stuff going on. And it's essentially it. It's venting. Eventually this will actually turn into me ranting, and that'll be when it gets really really ridiculous. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to also bitch about, a lot of stuff I'd like to just sort of set the record straight on. But you got to start somewhere. You got to make sure people know the background first. Maybe it all makes sense, maybe not. That's kind of funny. Did I grab the same one? Yeah, I did. Damn it. Let's just do that then. Do it all over again. McPixel. So a lot of where my difficulty in talking about my life comes a lot from stuff that's happened to me in the past. I don't see how that helps. I've had a lot of things that have happened that have kind of made life that kind of made me feel rather incredibly jaded in life. Um, I've got two kids from two completely different mothers, not related to my current wife. The I have very very limited visitation capabilities with both of them. One of them is miles and miles away. One of them lives in a little place called well, it's a place outside of St. Louis, Missouri. Um, I'm gonna replay these to try to get gold on each of them. It's basically kind of I mean that was probably the least complicated of all of them. Um, she and I had had problems with each other. It was really just a bad relationship from the get go. Um, that was mostly just created out of sex, and which is always a terrible way to start a relationship. If your relationship becomes like 90% about having sex with somebody and 10% about requiring their income for survival, you've probably got a pretty bad relationship going on. You've actually probably got a lot worse than just a pretty bad relationship going on. You're probably like sabotaging yourself and your goals in life, which coincidentally, as I'll talk about more, will become very obvious that I've been doing. Um, I've had a very long history of sabotaging myself and basically keeping myself from being happy. One of the things that quite a few people enjoy pointing out to me. High oxygen. Sorry. That was cute. Very cute. So that's been. I mean, that was. Um, my that's my youngest daughter. My youngest daughter is the one who lives, far from me. The And then there's of course my oldest daughter. My oldest daughter is lives incredibly close to me. Did that wrong again. I want that one, not the other one. My oldest daughter lives like within an hour and 15 minutes drive of me. Um, but I have uh, to call my visitation limited is a lot like saying that I don't have a good analogy. I can't believe I don't have a good analogy for this one. Basically, I see my oldest daughter maybe once a month, and when I do, it's on very 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 specific terms. Uh, well, with my youngest daughter, it's the distance. I'm required. My The wife of my youngest daughter has no transportation. That's why I don't get to see her a lot. There is pretty much literally no way, except for me making what is basically a 5.5 hour drive, to go down there, either pick up or just spend time with my youngest daughter, and then leave. Um, when you consider that I'm basically a small business owner doing a whole lot of work for, I mean, I basically do work for small businesses as a small business owner. I don't have tons and tons of time to be able to, run around and do that kind of stuff. So ultimately, it leads to this is wrong again. Ultimately, leads to a lot of failures. What feel like failures as a father. Um, you know, and it's been one of the harder things for me to deal with. I mean, it's very easy. It's very easy to for me to, it would be very easy for me to just say, well, nobody's fault. It's everybody else's fault. But at the end of the day, the only person I feel like it's the fault of is myself. I feel like somehow if I just had a little more, did a little bit more, maybe it wouldn't be quite as bad as it is. With my youngest, I have limited visitation because, and I have no polite way to say this. Um, the woman who presently the my ex, um, she did that wrong again. Um, my ex is incredibly outrageously overprotective. So in order for me to have visitation with my oldest daughter, it has to be uh, on her schedule, um, which is very very limited because she works. She doesn't have like a career-based job right now. She has a job-based job. She works at like a storage company as a HR manager or something like that. I don't really know all the details because, to be honest, anymore, with the situation that led up to, which I'll get to, but with the situation that led up to things happening between my ex and I have very little desire to listen to a lot of what she has to say. Um, Basically, the lead up to what happened between my ex and I, um, we've been having some issues. I was working part time with a company that did counseling for people who just had a DUI. So it's court mandated counseling basically. Really expensive stuff. Really psychological stuff. Um, I was given a very large opportunity while I was working there, um, to end up in a circumstance where I could end up being a full-time employee with the company. All I had to do, or not more than just a full-time employee, but also having um, a portion of any college that I wanted to do taken care of by the person that was running the agency. And then I got my ex pregnant. Um, things weren't moving as fast as she wanted, so she wanted me to find other work. I was resistant to find other work. I freaked out because she was pregnant. I freaked out horribly because at that time I was 18, 19 years old. I was 19 years old at the time. I mean, you're 19 years old and a woman tells you she's pregnant. Um, you just the only thing you think about is like how your life is ending. Your whole like life is now just basically, well, that's it. Not gonna really do anything here anymore. I can't find some other place to click. I mean, so the first thing you think is, well, we got to get rid of this. We have to get rid of this problem ASAP. Of course, the first thing out of your mouth is, well, let's get rid of the baby. Abortion. It's not exactly something that traditionally I'm in support of, but in a time of freak out, that's pretty much what your first go to. Your first go to, like, how do you get rid of it? I think that's a go to for most people. Okay, it's the fifth one over. Man, this is way harder for me than I thought it would be. Why does everything on the window lead to that? The so that all happens. Essentially, one morning I wake up. She tells me that she's going over to her parents' house to do some stuff, and then she's gonna go to work. Well, it turns out she didn't do that. She blew off work. Didn't even have work that day. Um, I basically come home to an empty house after I go to work. Or first of all, there's only one vehicle that we're splitting, so she's got the only vehicle in the entire in the relationship. So I have to take the bus to work. Get to work. That's when I called her at work. Found out she wasn't at work. Um, Went in hysterics. Got incredibly pissed off. When I came back home, she wasn't home. She and her parents later on showed up and threw me out of the apartment. Um, Told me essentially, that I had to leave. Didn't give me details as to why. She just told me she was done. A couple of weeks later, I finally get her to agree to talk to me about what happened. Um, After I get given a whole bunch of ridiculous excuses, including one where she claims that I cheated on her with two other women. Um, which, by the way, if you've listened to enough of anything that I've said thus far, you realize that if I accomplished anything with two women, everyone on the planet would know about it. There wouldn't be a single person on the planet that would be unaware that I successfully did anything involving two women. I don't know how to gold this map. There were like a number of other reasons. Most of it stemmed from the fact that ultimately it stemmed from the fact that there was a lot of fighting, and she did not she didn't like the idea that I went from somebody who traditionally would not be willing to even think of the idea of abortion as something to somebody who had been mentioning abortion at that point. She didn't care for that. And that made her freak out. Um, I had also, well, to add to that, I had kind of threatened suicide as well, which doesn't help any situation ever. So following that, of course, I went into freak out mode, calling her a lot because first of all, there's a child there, and then second of all, there's there's almost a year of relationship there. Um, and that doesn't end up going over well. There's actually a little over a year of relationship there, but that doesn't go over well. Basically, she files a restraining order against me. Um, and basically from that point on, um, we don't speak too much. So some time passes. It gets to be uh, about January of the following year, right around the time my daughter would be born. Um, my fuck to do here. It's actually kind of pissing me off at this point. I wonder if I just have to come over and hit the bomb. I've lost. I lost the story there. No, so basically I call the hospital. I think about calling the hospital on what turned out to be the day that my daughter was born. Um, and thank God. I decided instead to call, a couple of days later, and by that point, they had let her out of the hospital. Um, so I missed out on that, which would have been a, really great thing to have happened. But so that happens. I try calling her house. I get no answer at her house. Leave a voicemail, and then after that, I don't call again. I tried calling again a couple of times in between, but ultimately it like never yields anything. I always go to voicemail, and nobody calls me back. Nobody bothers to reply. Which to me was total bullshit. I mean, I'm showing signs that I want to talk, and not for my own reasons. There's definitely there's a child in this situation. It's who the fuck wants to grow up without a dad? I mean, what person out there wants to spend their life not having a dad? I've always felt terrible for those people who've had the terrible downtrodden luck of not having a father in their life. So why the fuck would I want to yield my daughter to be in a situation where she just doesn't have that experience? So I try, and the more I try again a couple of months later. I try again a couple of months after that, um, and eventually I get no response. So I just take a pause. The following Thanksgiving, I try again. Again, still no response. It starts to feel completely pointless at this point. At that point, you start to feel sort of like you know, you're never going to accomplish anything with a circumstance. Um, Another year passes. I call maybe twice out of that year because it's starting to become more and more like, nothing's ever going to happen. Um, Turns out around that time she had moved out of her parents' house and moved into a place of her own. So all I had to call her was her parents' house, and that was a number that was basically worthless because she wasn't there anymore. Shortly after that, her parents ended up moving. Then she loses her apartment and she moves back in with her parents. Again, stuff I didn't know. I only during this third year of my daughter's life, late second, early or no, early second, mid second year of her life, I discovered that she moved from a friend of mine. Um, and they say they're going to try to talk to her and get her to realize I really do want to be a part of my daughter's life, etc. And nothing ever comes of that. Um, the following year, I think it was, or the year after that, one of the two, she moves. No, it was not. It was the year after that. The following year, I get to see my daughter. A little over a year after that, I get to see my daughter for the first time. Um, my my grandparents, my aunt and uncle had put their child in a daycare center where where my ex and my daughter were currently going. My ex worked there, and my daughter was, of course, in daycare at the time at that age. Um, the they basically, my grandparents then basically talked her into letting me be able to visit with Michelle, which is my daughter's name. Probably shouldn't give that out over live chat, but she's old enough now at this point. She knows better than to trust any of you people. Um, so, she, so I get a couple of visits with her, um, and then one day I decide I'm gonna surprise, I'm gonna surprise her, I'm gonna surprise Michelle, and sort of show, that I really genuinely care. Um, yeah, I'm gonna back out of this because it's just pissing me off at this point. Nope, that's round three. Whatever. Doesn't matter what order I do it in. Um, dual phase, huh? Alright, anyway, going back to it. That was kind of weird. So I show up there thinking, I'm going to show her I really want to be a part of my daughter's life. Well, that backfires. Pretty much ends in the end of my visitation with my daughter, and not too long after that, uh, my ex then moves in with her parents, leaving me no address, no nothing. Which of course was pretty much what I should have expected from the situation. It wasn't until basically right now that um, and basically last year was the first time I've gotten visitation once again with my daughter, and all of it is supervised, all of it. I can't visit my daughter without having my ex there critiquing what it is I'm doing. Basically, it feels like I'm under a microscope constantly. Um, there's always she's always giving me looks like she doesn't get why I want to be there, why this is important to me. Like she's studying me for some reason. It's so hard to fucking understand why somebody would want to spend time with their child. For the love of God, what kind of ridiculousness is that? No one would ever want to spend time with their child. But I mean, to me, that's incredibly, I don't know, illogical. I mean, at this point, the time, the effort, the and let's just say it, the fucking money. I mean, all the things I put into this. There's no reason I would have wasted this much time and this much money and this much effort on this if I didn't want to be a part of my daughter's life. It's kind of absurd. I mean, I would think. But I mean, I guess the argument could always be made that, if I was crazy enough, I would do that. So, to me, though, that's probably the hardest part. The hardest part is like realizing that no matter what you explain, a person who's just fucking batshit crazy is still not going to, comprehend anything that you say. They can't get it. It is logically impossible to them. It's got a 3D FX card in it. For those of you who don't know, 3DFX is a very old graphics card. So that's some backstory there. Not super great backstory, but backstory nonetheless. I don't know. See, but that's an example. I don't really think my stories are all that great. My stories are just stories. Everybody's got them. So it doesn't make sense that I would even pretend that mine were of any real merit. But it does make me very jaded to people who can't understand the fucking value of their kids. I mean, a lot of times I can't comprehend how it's so difficult for people to, um, to think, hey, this person that I have has some value. I don't understand how people can, just let their children become worthless. There's no polite way to say that, I guess. Every time the conversation gets brought up and I have to think about it, it's all I can think about is that it's legitimately like they just don't care. They don't care if their child has worth, no worth, the inverse of worth, um, none. I mean, and I could expect that from certain communities. There's certain communities out there where that's like, to me that's kind of the status quo. But there's other communities out there. I've been in communities of all shapes, sizes, uh, colors, sexual orientations. It's so disgusting to watch somebody just basically take a giant dump on their kid's future. Who the fuck would want that from their life? Yeah, I'm not gonna try to spit down somebody's throat. You need to do this because your kids are your future. You know, people are self-centric. Nobody's going to care about the fact that their kid is unhappy at the end of the day. Um, well, nobody nowadays, at least it was what it feels like. But can't you for even the slightest bit think about how it reflects on you, how you've got to look as a fucking human being? You're worthless. I mean, that's all it proves. All it continues to prove is that you're worthless. You haven't evolved past what society thinks of you, and you never will. I mean, as long as you continue to be completely and totally fucking pointless, no one's going to give two shits. No one. They're just going to continue to look at you and your culture like you're worthless. No one's going to think of you for anything. No one's going to care. And at the end of the day, when you die, people are going to be happy to see you gone because you provided absolutely no benefit to anyone else. As a selfish person, I would figure that would be like, priority one. Like, nobody's going to care about me? But who the fuck knows? I don't understand the minds of selfish people. Clearly, it's some sort of fucking branch of stupidity. Or possibly even partial retardation. Actually, that might be it. Maybe it is some branch of partial retardation. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a pretty. Oh, I forgot that happens when I do that. I have a pretty high amount of narcissism from time to time. The stuff that I waste my time being worried about for myself. A good example. Most of it is all negative narcissism, but it's still narcissism nonetheless. But I mean, I don't know. My guess, I feel like somehow, if you're so narcissistic that you actually cause negative effect on other people around you, and negative people that you interact with, that you even that you're responsible for. And there's no like nobody ever has to deal with the one of the biggest problems, which is what's the word? Accountability. There's no accountability. People, basically people take these giant dumps on their kids, and end of the day, it's always a school teacher that's told they're responsible, or somebody else. No one, nowhere anymore does anybody put the accountability back on the parents. Nowhere does somebody come back to the parents and say, "You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit, and you deserve to be. I mean, you deserve far worse than to be treated like one." Nowhere. No one takes that stance. No one is willing to stand up to somebody and say, "Stop being worthless." Which to me is utter and complete nonsense. I mean, we won't get anywhere as a society if that's how we continue. We're all just gonna fucking die off. But we're all too busy, thinking about how great it is that we managed to lower our fucking carbon footprint so we can feel better about ourselves, pretending that that has some impact on the environment itself. Fuck you. You're not doing it to the things that these people do have less than zero to do with anything even closely related to trying to fix things. It's all about how they can fucking self feel better about themselves. It's all fucking masturbatory. Our society is so fucking masturbatory. I'm oftentimes surprised I don't just walk down the street and watch people doing it in the middle of the fucking street. They might as well. Sometimes it'd be a little more PC. Actually, probably be substantially more PC. But yet, on the opposite side, the guy who wants to do right is, still fucking fighting a pretty much losing battle to do anything close to right. It's fucking nonsense. Fucking absolute nonsense. Oh, wrong spot. So it's the story of my kids. It's the first place to start. Don't expect a whole lot of people to watch, listen, or care. Um, but I'd say it's probably just as important that, oops, didn't hit that in time. It's probably just as important that I get it out of my system to a much larger audience, a more broad audience, and have it somewhere where I can't take it back. I can't claim I said something else. It's just what it is. Because there's a lot of things that can be said. There's a lot of people that can claim, well, you didn't say that, you didn't mean that. Pretty hard to fucking argue with recording. Pretty fucking hard to argue with recording. Yep, she had the bomb. And apparently a frog. Oh no, I turned her into a frog. How was Harry Potter the fucking priest at a wedding? These bonus rounds are all pointless, by the way. There's no winning, it's just a round to do random things. Well, I appreciate the sentimentality. But I mean, that's how it is. You gotta deal with it. I mean, the venting helps. It's always good to have people I know can listen to it, or at least are willing to listen to it. Um, and it's especially good to have it out there, to just put it out there on, like I said, in recording. Um, there's no way that somebody can say, I never said my feelings about the whole circumstance, because there they are. As long as YouTube continues to be owned by Google, and as long as Google continues to be the monster mecha creation that it is, I don't think this video is going anywhere anytime soon once I put it up there. But this is to be just a start of stuff I want to talk about. I just want to put some background to the stuff I start to say, because in a lot of cases, some things about me may not be comprehensible without some background added to it. Alright, so just walking to that side causes that to happen. Okay. But I do work quite hard to try to get enough together to make things better. Gave me a seizure there? Jesus. Speaking of that, that's something that's not cool. Seizures. Had those when I was a kid. It's a fucking nightmare. Oh, that's a Pokeball, huh? I had an issue where if I was underslept, I technically own two businesses. Um, my store, my gaming business is basically just mostly a hobby. It's done as a way for me to, be able to have a place where, my friends and I and other people I care about can hang out, play games, just do stuff that you'd want to do at a store, at a game store. I started off trying to do it as a real business, and it didn't go over too well. I mean, you can't truly be successful in the gaming business without being willing to sort of con people. And I hate to put it that way, but that's the only real way to put it. If you're not willing to, rip people off, people aren't really going to be willing to, you basically have to be able to do that thing where you look people in the eye, you fucking just flat out lie to them, sell them everything under the sun, and then rip them off in the end. You can't not. There's really no way to be successful otherwise. My other business is I do, like I think I said already, I do IT support for small businesses. Um, I'm incredibly good at it for the most part. I'm not, I'm not a high-end IT consultant. I don't do, there's certain things that, there's certain things that aren't in my purview. But for the most part, like the largest, the largest statement I have that surprised me initially. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's just gonna fart. One of the greatest statements I've had overall is that I don't charge enough. Um, I charge quite a bit of money for what I do, uh, but I still don't charge enough. Um, but that's because I'm good. I mean, I'm efficient. I come in, I get the job done. I get the job done in a reasonable amount of time, so the client doesn't end up paying, up the ass for work done, and then I get going. I don't have time for bullshit. It's one of the things that pisses me off about people. People, people act like I've got time to fucking lie about some shit, and it's really fucking maddening when there's only one fucking time I'm gonna fucking lie. I'm only gonna fucking lie when I'm playing a game, and my ability to win the game depends on whether or not I can bluff you well enough. That is legitimately the only time I'm gonna lie. Any other time, it's a fucking waste of time. It takes more time. When you lie and somebody calls you on it, it takes you more time to just come up with more shit to just defeat your own fucking lie. So where's the fucking point there? I mean, what good does that do? How am I accomplishing anything at that point? I'm not. I'm basically setting myself back. It's the fucking last thing I want to do. It's just moronic. So I don't. I have a very, very candid policy. One of the worst parts about having, such a candid, honest policy, though, is that in a lot of cases, I can end up having a customer be in one of those situations. Uh, no, there's a catch there. Um, our store we have a sort of a membership program, kind of like if you were in Sam's Club or something like that. Um, our membership, basically, in order to get the if you were here, if you had membership, you would be able to, like, all of our players got it. They didn't quite get it for MSRP, but they got it for a huge knockdown from the secondary market price. I basically have a price that I've set for um, what I consider I'm going to sell from the vault for. So everybody basically paid $50 as it stood, and got it from the vault. Um, there was something they had to do some extra stuff. I always make them have to, say some silly statement that involves them, having to do research on what cards are in the set. Basically do stuff to make me entertained. Because if I'm gonna sell these and I'm gonna basically lose money on them, I'm gonna get my enjoyment's worth out of it. There's no question as to why I would want to do that. That only just makes simple logical sense. So there you could, if you lived out here and you had membership in our program. In addition to that, you'd get one free event per week of your choice, um, and you get a discount on singles, on packs, and on other products that you buy. Pretty much everything ends up discounted except the From the Vault. The From the Vault is the only thing that does not get discounted, and considering the secondary market price, I think I'm being way more than fair on that. But fair enough is actually pretty much, my goal. The goal of the business is to be about as fair as possible. Doesn't do me any good to not be fair. That's, again, a waste of time. It's a waste of my goddamn time to be unfair. Because then I gotta deal with the repercussions of that. However, I do offer boxes for a reasonably fair price. Um, my I forget what the pricing is right now though, because I'm kind of fucking tired. Fuck that up. I wanted to do the groin hit, not the body hit. Um, the only problem is I can't master shipping. I'm really slow about shipping stuff. So I've had people order stuff from me before because my prices are really good, but I mean it can take me up to a week to get stuff shipped out because of my terrible horrible memory. If it's not on the schedule, if it's not scheduled, I'm not gonna remember it. It's pretty much what it comes down to. So I think at this point my goal is just to gold through this last level and probably head to bed. Got another long day tomorrow. I'm going to try to abbreviate it a little bit, but it's probably going to be harder than I want it to be. Oh, did that wrong. Alright, so taking a pause from the ranting and focusing a little more on the game. As you can see, there's not a whole lot going on. It's a bit retarded. For some reason, I really love this game. I think it's just the simplicity of it. It's so obnoxiously straightforward and simple that I really find it hard to not enjoy. You just click stuff and see what happens. And some of it's humorous, some of it's stupid. Some of it's just juvenile bathroom humor. I don't know. Oftentimes it's the simple shit that I find the most enjoyable. Can I like get his hat? Nope. All this can just as easily be infuriating from time to time. Put the crank in her. There we go. Oh, that wasn't gold. That was actually one of the funny ones. Oh, I'd have figured that guy killing himself from a squirt gun. Oh, no, that's where I pee on him. Forgot about that. Oh. That's how that went. Let's use the wand on him. Makes him naked. Okay. Still not gold though. Try it on him. Still not good enough. Alright. What the hell am I supposed to do? I've left here, I think. Oh, there are things under those. Fine, I got that one. This bonus round. That was tweakish. This is very obviously made by somebody who smoked a lot of weed. They had to have smoked so much weed that Cheech and Chong would have... Man, Cheech and Chong would have thought, that's a fucking lot of weed. I don't know, there's no... I mean, that's just a statement all in and of itself. Why is the third one? That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Alright, well that's what I'm going to call it for tonight. I will give shout out to Mastermind for sitting around here and watching through the whole thing directly. And anybody who watches this on YouTube, thanks for watching it. Leave me some comments if you hate this, or some dislikes. I'll take the dislikes just the same. Just please don't unsub. I'm totally trying to find out what would interest people, so we can use this as a way to decide if you hate me or not. So, thanks a lot, guys.